have such sights to show you.
We're Poppin the Scary horror podcast here. I'm your host Coale, and with me as always I have my good friend and co-host Aaron. Aaron, hello buddy old pal.
Hello!
What's up?
Oh, just chilling.
Chilling.
Big chilling.
Yeah.
A little chilly weather rolling in.
Yeah.
So we're fat chilling today.
Yep, exactly. With Thanksgiving season rolling up, it's all about thinking about family and all that good stuff there. So I think it's a good time to revisit the Universal monsters, since I know last year whenever we watched Frankenstein and Dracula, you really enjoyed watching those films a ton.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about going into today's episode of The Wolfman?
Yeah, this is one that I've definitely, I feel like, Frankenstein, Dracula, there's a lot of, book-based lore that everybody's familiar with. With the Wolfman, I really don't know. It's just a werewolf, right? I mean, he's the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. Basically, it's a werewolf, which I don't know the reason as to why it's called a Wolfman as opposed to werewolf. Maybe just because werewolf is less apparent of what it is as opposed to Wolfman, where it's just like a man that's a wolf.
Right.
Basically, so...
But yeah, like Dracula, Frankenstein, like those are two popular things that you read in high school, you know what I mean? I've never read a novel about a werewolf that I can think of, so...
No, not really. I mean, I think the mythos of the werewolf, just goes back probably even further than Mary Shelley's novel and Bram Stoker's Dracula as well. And it's just kind of just been like a common mythos there. That's my interpretation at the very least, anyhow. But
I also feel like nowadays werewolves kind of get the sidekick role, you know what I mean? Like werewolves are affection in something. You can play as a werewolf in this game, or like, oh yes, there are werewolves mentioned in this Twilight franchise or whatever, you know. They play significant roles, but there are werewolves in Harry Potter, but besides American Werewolf in London, man, there's just not that many cultural touchstones where werewolves are the main character.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of interesting that this is technically the second werewolf film I believe we've watched on this podcast, since American Werewolf in London was one of them, which hopefully you end up liking this movie a little bit better than you did American Werewolf in London.
That's just a goofy movie.
Yeah. But you don't have any idea about anything at all whatsoever.
No, I really don't know the plot or anything. Like, I kind of knew the plot going into Dracula, Frankenstein, those monster movies that we've seen. But this one, I assume somebody gets turned into a werewolf. Other than that, I don't know.
I mean, that's a pretty good and fair assumption, I would probably say. But no prior experience or anything like that, like you mentioned, right?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like maybe I've seen some old-ass clips from this movie or something with the full moon out and, the transformation. There's always a transformation sequence, you know. But not as far as, the plot, the storyline, those sorts of... I really don't know what I'm getting into.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, with me, my experience with the Wolfman, it's kind of the same as you, where, I showed you those pictures of Dracula and Frankenstein I had on cassette tape, and after I had watched those, I then started, branching out more and more into watching stuff, and I ended up watching The Wolfman a lot later than what I anticipated. It just kind of ended up going out that way, and I knew nothing about it except for the lead actor, Lon Chaney Jr., is the son of Lon Chaney, who played the Phantom in the Phantom of the Opera, the silent film. Universal would create a later Phantom of the Opera in the 40s, and also played Quasimodo in the silent adaptation of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And so he's basically following in his father's footsteps in that regard there. So this was kind of, I would probably argue this is his biggest film he has been a part of, because he would show up later, but people would mostly remember him later on as the Wolfman. But yeah, I've only seen it a few times. I saw it once during my binge, and then I watched it with my wife during a Halloween season. So I'm really pumped and excited to go back to it, and just kind of see what your thoughts are, because I love getting different perspectives on films just to kind of help solidify or rethink my own.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, aside from that, don't go outside, boys and girls, because it's a full moon out.
Ow!
And yeah, ouch, right, that was a bad one. We'll be right back after we watch The Wolfman. Holy cow, I need to rethink everything in my life right now. And we are back from watching The Wolfman. And Aaron, how you feeling, bub, about The Wolfman's?
Wooga!
How long have you been holding that itch?
12 seconds.
Oh, good on you.
That was a movie. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was a movie we just watched. I do feel like, yeah, overall, it maybe didn't age as well as, like, Dracula and Frankenstein and even Nosferatu and other old black and white monster movies. But, no, it was an interesting one, and it was a cool sort of mythos to explore. But yeah, overall, it was, I don't know, a little bit more of a sleeper than the other two.
Oh, okay.
How'd you feel about it?
You know, it's funny because first time I watched it, I was blown away in some regards, which it could have been just a high of visiting all of the monster films and just being like, wow, this is so cool and all this stuff. Second time I watched it, I really enjoyed a lot of the story beats. Maybe like rode off the high a little bit, you know, second time round, but still was like, yeah, it had been a long time since I had seen it, but I think I watched it last year, I want to say. Third time watching it, there's definitely a lot of stuff I do like about it, but I'd be remiss not to mention some weaker points, but I still think this film is a lot stronger than what you're feeling it is.
Okay.
On that behalf anyhow, but we could definitely dive more into the details there. So jumping into the plot, it focuses on Larry Talbot returning back home to his family's castle in the village, and whenever he returns home, he manages to run into this lovely woman, Gwen, who he ends up getting feelings for. And whenever they start to venture out with one of her friends, they have an encounter with a werewolf. And from that event on forward, it ends up kind of spiraling into the general plot of the story as they try to figure out what exactly is going on. I feel like plot-wise, it's good. It's good. I think it's solid setup to just, you know, how in the world they ran into the werewolf there, and kind of how everything starts to unfurl, because it's not like an active investigation per se, but at the same point, more stuff is revealed just due to circumstance and general anxiety. Lots of suspense leading up to it, so I feel like plot-wise there isn't too much. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's just like, it's been about a wolf, you just got times ticking.
It is pretty simple, and although we can't really talk about the finer details of how the story progresses until we hit the spoiler section, I will say just like the overall like plot, how this way with how it was filmed, it was a lot more like theater than modern films. I felt kind of the same way about Dracula, where there's a lot of aspects that felt theatrical still. You can like divide this movie up into acts pretty simply, and it's, you know, a lot of the ways that they go about things are like, yes, I will explain what happened to myself in a soliloquy over here, you know, like, so it was, just the whole movie had more of a theatrical flair than modern films.
I could see that, because that's definitely something that I love about the Universal monster films, is that, you know, sometimes they are more kind of like movie or kind of like theater based, but I feel like they still had a lot of good settings to make it cinematic enough.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, in this kind of time period, we're not too far off from whenever film looked a lot like theater, when they literally just filmed a stage of actors doing theater pretty much. So it's not too far removed from those days. And although this is definitely cinema and cinematography and not, you know, just filming a theater production, it's just has a lot more of those elements when the story and the characters and the acting than I'm used to with more modern films.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, it's kind of hard to talk about the plot without spoiling stuff, so we'll probably have to touch back to the plot, but just know that it's general, like, yep,
It's pretty straightforward.
yeah, pretty straightforward. Nothing wrong with that. Going to the list of characters, we have our boy Lon Chaney Jr., who plays Larry Talbot, and as the opening credits will tell you right off the gate, he is indeed the Wolfman.
Which deflates any sort of suspense or feign of suspense they might have of like, what's going to happen to this guy? He becomes the Wolfman.
Yes, we well, we won't dive in too much into details. It's like one of the weird things where I know with American Werewolf in London, we didn't want to spoil too much at the beginning, but this right out the gate shows picture and everything, like Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman, not even Larry Talbot.
No, yeah, and they just showed like a whole bunch of people like looking blissfully off camera, you know, shots that they made just to introduce these characters in the beginning. It did seem, like when you're at the closing part of a theater or whatever, and each one comes out and gives a little bow and does a little thing that their character would do or whatever. I was like, yeah, this is not too far off from those days.
Yeah. It's always funny, but it was very interesting to see it at the very beginning there, as opposed to the end.
Right, this guy's the Wolfman. It's like, well, yes, I suppose I would read that in my playbill. But...
Yeah, but overall thoughts on his performance and his character.
I thought he's good. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think I can't fault his performance too much, given the acting style of the time. But yeah, he was a tall guy. Jeez, he's a big dude.
Yeah, he was very tall. I mean, I want to say he was 6'3". I want to say. I'm actually not too terribly sure. So
it's always funny seeing him in the scenes with like his dad or something, and he's like a full head or two higher than him.
Yeah. 6'2". That's how tall he was. But yeah, it definitely was kind of funny just seeing how big of a guy he was. Which, again, I think since you're casting him as the Wolfman, it's good to kind of cast a taller person as opposed to shorter, just to add that extra layer of menacing there. But I really like Lon Chaney a lot. He does have a bit of that older cinema acting there, where they kind of deliver lines a little bit of the same, but I still find him endearing. He has an interesting role where, at the beginning he's like more of a jokester, kind of a playboy, flirting up the town and doing that. But then he has to quickly change it to a much more dramatic role as he's struggling on kind of what's going on with him and what to do, knowing that he is the Wolfman.
Right.
Which I really like that aspect. You definitely see a lot of moments where he's just really stressed out and he's not sure what he wants to do, especially since most people aren't believing in the mythos too much, but they do come back to it on a constant basis where they're like, well, I mean, I can understand you believe you're a wolf man, but it's all in your mind, And so I like those moments whenever they kind of discuss the ideology of being a werewolf and the practicality of it. And it's not completely like, there's no such thing. Like, they do ultimately end up saying there's no such thing, but they do say, well, I believe that you believe that you're a wolf man.
Right. They definitely do on multiple occasions, like list, lycanthropy or whatever as a symptom of schizophrenia. Like, oh, yes, this is just a special type of crazy, Or you think that you become a wolf at night, and it's documented science, fellows.
Yeah, but I would say he was definitely fun to watch. Real trooper, definitely a standout actor. For me, anyways, I enjoy his charisma he bolsters and just kind of going through this journey with him. I also have to give him mad props for the makeup, because the process of him like putting the makeup on and transforming and everything, he had to sit there 4 hours as the makeup people put makeup on him, and so he had to like just wait there entirely for hours on end as they slowly applied it on, so that way it looked so it looked legitimate, because obviously, without giving too much away, it's hard to beat kind of the cinematic impressiveness of the wolf transformation here than An American Werewolf in London, which I think that was the only thing that you're like, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
With American Werewolf in London. But it's still cool just to see early makeup techniques, because this was 1941 whenever it released. So definitely, trying to learn how to deal, like, how do we do a transformation sequence, and doing stuff like that. But overall, definitely a fan of Lon Chaney Jr. He's a fun actor to watch. So I probably have a bit of a bias and soft spot for his performance there. Another performance that I did think was fun was by Claude Rains, who played his dad, Sir John Talbot. And I feel like he gives an amazing performance, but the script writing makes him just so one-directional. But then again, it could have that dad mentality, because he's like one of the biggest proponents, like, nope, nothing's wrong.
Yeah, he's definitely, he does have to walk a weird wire where he's trying to, like, protect his family name, but also protect his son or whatever. And, at the end of the day, he's like, no, nothing's wrong with you. Just stay locked in your room, pal, and everything will be fine. You're crazy, but we'll fix you,
Yeah, and it could also be his dad in denial, because they mentioned at the beginning of the film that he lost his son recently, and that's another reason that made Larry want to come back to the castle.
Right, so whatever happens, he doesn't want to lose another son,
So he's deep in denial, and that's apparent throughout the entire film. But it is funny because, again, he is very much shorter compared to Lon Chaney's 6'2". It's like that one meme, 5'11" versus 6'2" or whatever, or 6 foot, where it's miles apart. But it is funny because he definitely has a commanding presence, like where you believe that he would talk down to his son like that whenever his son
he has to look up.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. But I thought his performance was super fun. He definitely kind of served as also again, good piece where they like debate about the likelihood of a werewolf being real versus actually in your mind. So it's fun to watch him perform and everything. But yeah, that was my thoughts about it. We should talk about our leading lady, Gwen Conliffe, played by Evelyn Ankers. And I wish I could say more, but I think she just wasn't written to have a lot.
No,
there.
Most women at the time were not. She's no exception. She's sort of the damsel in distress woman.
Yes.
She doesn't get to do much. But
which is disappointing there, because like I said, there is like a couple of like fun scenes at the beginning, like, but again, I feel like it's only cute or fun because they give Larry more to work with, and she's only there to react to his stuff there. Like whenever he's going on, he's like, oh, I could tell because I'm a psychic, talking about that stuff. But that being said, for having nothing to work with, I still felt like she was perfectly fine and serviceable.
Yeah.
I believed it, although I will say, like, the way that she has to have, like, her character be written at certain moments, it's like, well, that escalated quickly. Yes.
Yeah, a little bit. Her character's not... Well, her and Larry both are not written to be the best because of the sort of central conflict within their love triangle, which isn't necessarily werewolfism, although that certainly throws a wrench in plans, too. But, no, I mean, it's the fact that, she's already entangled with another man.
Yes, and I believe it's Frank Andrews, played by Patrick Knowles, who we get to see a couple of times. And again, he's not written to have too much there, just the love interest, who also happens to be the game warden, I believe.
He's like the foil, he's like, he's the game warden specifically for their property, Larry's father's property or whatever. So he's like, I'm around and I'm gonna be hunting for wolves. Hope there's none on this property. Ooh,
Yes, yeah. And you get to see him a couple of times there. He just kind of pops in and out of the story there.
Right.
Like I said, I do feel like I feel like everything is just focusing on Lon Chaney's character, which, I mean, it's called the Wolfman. He's a central character.
Sure.
I understand and everything else. The focus needs to be solely on him. It is just kind of sad that most of the characters kind of feel one-dimensional because they're only there to play into his story.
Right.
There, which, nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just kind of like hard whenever it comes to critiquing stuff. It's like, both Gwen and Frank were like fine, believable characters and everything. It's just not a lot of depth there. But one person that is always a joy to watch, of course, is Bela Lugosi, returning as Bela, the fortune teller.
Mm-hmm.
So were you surprised to see him pop up in this film?
I suppose. I don't know. All these old black and white people look the same to me.
Yeah, it was just funny because the first time I saw it, I was like, Dracula's in this film?
That certainly adds a twist to everything.
Yeah, but he was super fun to deal with. You could tell, like, Bela also just has fun being a part of this there.
Yeah.
Because as we find out, he has his own problem as well.
With the wolves.
Yes, with the wolves, the lycanthropy there, but you don't get to see too much of him, but for the moments he's there, it's just like, oh, that's cool, it's Bela, it's like fun, it's cool to see him play another role besides Dracula. It's kind of funny to see him, though, be much different than Dracula was, because Dracula was like, suave and confident in Dracula, whereas this one, Bela, the fortune teller, is for the most part just calm, and then once he realizes things are getting bad, he starts stressing out real quick. So that was cool and fun to see. There's also the Bela's mother, Maliva. I would have never guessed that her name was Maliva because she rarely says anything, but she's played by Maria Ospenkaya. Let's see. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but she was also fun, as a plot piece there, just to kind of help further explain the lycanthropy, because she's the only one that believes that, Lon Chaney's the werewolf. And she tries to offer help and stuff like that, but that could be debatable on how much she helps in situations. I feel like she helps immensely versus not at all, but that's something for dissection later. But she still plays it straightforward, and is a fun character. The rest of the characters, there's a lot of people that just appear, ends up kind of being like, yep, they're there. Like, even less so. Yeah. Because there's even a lot of scenes with Dr. Lloyd, played by Warren William, or Colonel Montfort, played by Ralph Belliam, who are hanging out the castle, who, throw in their thoughts. Dr. Lloyd is also thinking, like, yeah, I think Lon Chaney, good lord. I think Larry Talbot is mentally ill and needs to get help, while his dad is like, nope, that's nonsense. My boy's fine. It's fine. Right. Just all in his mind. And then the Colonel, I think he's just an asshole. He's just constantly making jabs at Larry. Yeah. Just saying, like, you're dumb. Think you're a wolf person.
Well, they were also, like, they're introduced as, like, childhood friends or whatever. They were like, oh, yeah, we used to steal things by the river or whatever the fuck he says. And he's like, well, now I'm the constable, so you're under arrest, kid.
You're under arrest, kiddo. But they don't have too much to work on besides, they're just filling in the background. Yeah. There a little bit, which is unfortunate. And
I mean, there's just a lot of side characters that play like little roles and moments, but there are an abundance of side characters that all just kind of, it's a smattering. Yeah, like the dad of the love interest plays a pretty significant role for reasons I don't know. Because he's not very pivotal to the story or anything. He's just, like, always there.
Yeah, he just, like, appears, like, 3 times. And one of them, he doesn't even say a word because it was at the church, I believe. Right. Yeah, so J.M. Kerrigan playing Charles Conliffe. Good job. Believable dad vibes rolling off. Doing that. Or, there's Jenny, Gwen's friend, that tags along. She's just very, like, bubbly, ditzy, that side friend.
Yeah, there are a lot of
Mhm.
characters. Some that I feel are necessary, and some that I feel could do without, or at least
Yes.
could play a smaller
Yeah.
active role.
Yeah, seriously, that's kind of what I feel like as well. So, yeah, like I said, there's just lots of characters, but the more we go down the list, the less we'll have to say. It's just like
Right.
mostly roll call at this point.
Yeah, even
So,
though they might have a lot of screen time, like her dad, like they don't do anything. So why mention yeah?
yeah. So we'll just move on to other aspects of the film there. I know we talked about this before. I'll mention it again. I love the set pieces. There's just a lot of cool looking set pieces there, whether it's Talbot Castle or
Mhm.
the woods plays a big
True.
aspect of it. I even like the fact that they have a scene at the church graveyard and the church itself. Like, it's
Mhm.
brief moments there, but it's just so atmospheric that it just kind of adds to it.
Oh yeah, and even
Mhm.
like the gypsy sort of celebration that happens at one point, and they're all around the wagons and dancing. There's definitely some flavorful set pieces.
Yeah, and the fog, good Lord Almighty, there is a
Mhm.
lot of fog that was used on this set, but I think it helps just to make it even more atmospheric there,
Mhm.
especially whenever you see Lon Chaney walking through the woods whenever he's gone full werewolf mode there, and you see like his furry feet, shuffling past the fog and everything. It's
Mhm.
just very cool and atmospheric. And I also love the gypsy camp. I thought it was cool just seeing like so many fun, flavorful set pieces in this
Mhm.
film there, just to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. Because I mean, that was the thing about Dracula. They stay in that one room for a long time.
Yeah, they
that
go
just
back there a lot.
Yeah, that was like a straight stage play. And then the only cool set piece was probably Dracula's castle, I would have to argue.
Yeah.
That was like the one cool set piece, and then
Mhm.
you get to see at the beginning and end. Whereas this, you get to at least see like a lot of cool like uh, set pieces. So
Yeah.
that was always fun for me. There, definitely just hits the spooky mood for me.
Mhm.
I What were your thoughts about the makeup? I know I kind of raved on about it earlier, just kind of how cool it was to see early effects of it.
Yeah, I do think the like Wolfman effects in particular are neat to see now. I wouldn't say he's very menacing of a monster.
Mm-hmm.
He just looks like a really hairy dude, but
Yeah.
it's it's cool to see how they handled sort of those transformations and special effects back
Mm-hmm.
in the day. I think some of them, especially some of the editing effects and stuff they went for in the beginning, just don't age amazingly, which is hard to fault it
Mm-hmm.
for because it is so old now. But I hate doing this, but I just compare it to something like Frankenstein that has aged so well, and I'm like, oh, it could have been this, But,
That's true. That's true. I can understand that. It's kind of hard to like beat kind of iconic looks because, like I
Mhm.
said, Dracula. I mean, there's a reason why so many people, decades later, like go back to Bela as one of the
Mhm.
main things for Dracula. Like everyone knows how to do the voice, and then
Right.
the Frankenstein monster is so iconic as well. But whenever you get to like the Wolfman, I will say it is kind of interesting to see. This is like an even mix of like human and wolf, I would see, because a lot of
Yeah.
times they do change it more into wolf, and I'm sure that at the time they did this, they were like maybe they couldn't make it look good doing a full wolf head there. So I
Mhm.
think whenever it came to the practicality of the time, I think going kind of more humanoid as opposed to wolf is probably a good thing on hand.
Mhm.
It was also just kind of interesting just to see a different take because, like I
Yeah.
said, the werewolf to me, like the wolf man as it's called, I like how it's iconic kind of on its own because that's one of the things I mentioned about American Werewolf in London is I didn't like the wolf. Like
Mhm.
once he went full wolf, I was just
Right.
like, yeah, it just kind of is boring
Yeah.
to me overall. So at
Yeah,
least
it's a wolf. Yeah.
this, although he did, the one thing I love, but I can also see being very silly, is the fact that lots of werewolves they have their clothes torn up and everything else,
Yeah.
but with with Larry Talbot, whenever he goes, it's like you see his feet, but then he has really nice clothes. He has like his
Right.
slacks, his little shirts tucked in,
Yeah,
has
there's
the
no
dad
like,
bod going around.
there's no real like transformation. That is a common thing that they run through because the werewolf problem they encounter towards the beginning of the movie too. They're like, oh, no shoes. Peculiar,
Yeah.
and it's like, but that's the only thing. It's like, it's like the Hulk expanding purple trousers, but for all of their clothes. It's like just the shoes that are an issue.
Yeah.
Everything else is fine.
Yeah, this is probably the most controlled transformation
Right.
out of anything there. And so it's like a mixture of like, yeah, it's a little goofy, but I think it's fun and unique kind of seeing it play out the way it does. But I can understand just being like, Frankenstein came out in 31, I want to say. Yeah. So having this film come out 10 years later, 10 years is a long time for makeup effects and everything. So I can understand that level of disappointment being like, kind of thought it would age a little bit better
Yeah.
at the time there. But I still think it's fun. And one of the things I do like is they do censor the violence, but they do it in a way that doesn't feel like cheap or anything. Like you still feel the impact because there's times whenever they're having to fight off wolves and everything and you hear thwack thwack, but it's like right behind a tree and everything. So that part's cool that I really like a ton. I will say there are a couple of things that I could talk about that I was like, well, that was kind of cool, but also weird and not what I was expecting. And it's whenever right before he turns into the Wolfman the first time, there's that strange psychedelic sequence there where it's like showing the flashes and the faces of people. Like I thought it was like cool you're able to do that, but at the same point it's like I thought that was like maybe him kind of turning into the Wolfman, but as you see, he just runs back to the manor and then starts transforming, which, it could be like a reflection of his own state of mind and paranoia and everything else playing up. But it was definitely one of those things like sitting through, I'm like, I've never thought about how weird this is.
Yeah, and like one of the major running themes that we've kind of alluded on a little bit is that they're like, okay, well, like lycanthropy is a form of psychosis. You'll just have it all in your mind. And so there's like, I think part of the script at least was trying to have the audience be like, is he just making all of this up, or is he the Wolfman? Like that's the one question we have to ask. And like even sort of the way it concludes, you can reasonably ask, was it all in his head? Because who all saw the Wolfman besides him and the people that were close to the Wolfman? But it's so I feel like those sorts of moments are like teasing, like he has something wrong in his head. He's got all these traumas and he's becoming the Wolfman or whatever. But is he really, But at the same time, like we, the audience, see the Wolfman a lot, and the wolf thing. So it's like it's almost like the movie's kind of trying to do that, but just really weakly. Like, well, you guys want to see the wolf? Say the wolf, but maybe he's making it up.
That's true. Definitely, there's not as much mystery as to whether it's in his head or not there.
Right.
It's pretty straightforward that, like, no, he's the Wolfman.
Right, but I feel
sure.
like, left over from the initial script or plot or whatever is all these moments that's like, it might be in his head.
No, I totally get you.
Yeah.
I am picking up what you're putting down, and I agree with you, but it is just funny being like, psych! Doing that. I also think that one of the things that did kind of make me go like, okay, is they did reuse a lot of shots specifically with the Wolfman, because I'm like, we saw this shot exactly earlier before, which I'm sure it was one of those things that like, God, that makeup's a pain to put on. Let's just recycle it. Nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to have home video where they can rewatch it.
Right.
But it was definitely like, same werewolf scene again,
This one again.
Yes, for sure. But at least they would add sometimes new stuff there. But part of me is like, but I'm sure it was also like, we don't want to like spend more money on film. Just copy it.
Right.
Do that. Yeah, and music I feel like is pretty good. I definitely feel like it's a little bit more in your face than other films.
Sure,
because I feel like sometimes films go well with the visuals and stuff, but then there's other times where it's a little heavy-handed. So I was like, okay, the music's a little heavy-handed there, but it still was perfectly fine. I guess it's like in comparison to Dracula, where there wasn't enough music there, which definitely kind of just made it feel more crackly. If I had a choice between the two, I'm definitely like, blast that soundtrack out, baby. Do that. But yeah, aside from that, was there anything good or bad you wanted to mention about this film? I know it's kind of hard to talk about it without talking about specific plot points and everything.
Yeah, I also just feel like there's not as much juicy, ooey gooey stuff to dive into with this film as there are with a lot of other films we talk about.
Okay.
I feel like it's a little simple. It's a little by the numbers, which probably made people cream their little pants back in the 30s or whatever. But for Mr. Me, who has seen cool werewolf transformations before, I just was a little overwhelmed overall.
Okay, yeah, totally understandable. I guess we'll talk more about that stuff in spoiler section. So how's about you give us your rating?
All right, yeah. Man, usually I do like a short little recap of my opinion. I feel like I touched on a lot of stuff. I don't think there's a lot of substance in this one that really gives me something good to grip onto. And although there's not a whole lot that's like super bad or whatever, like I need a little more juice. The plot was like from the beginning, as soon as I saw what was going on, I was like, great, I know how this ends, and it did, never beat, and I was like, great, it's just a little by the numbers. Nothing really surprised me. And there wasn't even any, like, old funny stuff where I was like, haha, that was a really bad editing. It was just like, oh, it's just, So there wasn't a lot for me to carry on with this movie, honestly. I think, which was sad, because I do think the sort of environment that they set up really good. The set pieces were really good. Just the mythos that they were tapping into and the way they tapped into it, even though it's like a little almost kind of racist today. Just like the gypsies, But I do think, the way they sprinkled in that Romanji culture was kind of cool. And how they were trying to hint at sort of the mental aspect. I do feel like that ultimately failed, but I do give them props for that. It was interesting. But overall, you combine all the stuff I like, I feel like it's a much smaller pile to, like, what I watched substance-wise. I feel like it's like boiling down a big pot of spinach, and it's like, all right, well, here's what I'm left with. And it's just this little sludgy swirl when you boil down a whole bag of spinach, So for that reason, I give this like a 3 out of 10 for me. Oh, Wolfman. I respect it. Yeah. Bark. Yeah. Overall, I don't think it totally stood the test of time for me, and just feel like it needs a little something to boost it up beyond an average experience, or up to average for me. But
okay, well, yeah. As soon as you said boiled down spinach sludge, I was like, oh no, we're going down. We're going.
It's not like it was egregious. Like it's, oh god, this film, I have to watch this again. It's just like, I'm just fighting off falling asleep for most of it. But
Yeah. Well, this might be the biggest gap we've done in ratings so far. Cause even though there are weaknesses to this film, and who knows, you have proven time and time again in spoilers section, you can either raise or lower my score if I'm like, crap, you're right, dude. What was I thinking? Something like that. So we'll have to see tentatively there. Usually I'll mention like, yep, go up a point or go down. But this one, I still find it's a lot of fun. Now, granted, it could be just simple biases that I have personally. Like, I love seeing Lon Chaney's performance. It's just like something I enjoy watching. Even though none of the characters are like the best character study, even the main character, Larry Talbot, I feel like he is a little bit by the numbers, and he's supposed to be, and he should be the most complex character, but it's still just like enjoyable. It's like comfort food. It's like that sort of stuff with me, because I love the eeriness of it. I love the back and forth there. I do love the gypsy culture that's thrown in, even though obviously you have to be very careful how it's implemented, because that definitely affects how well it ages there. But there's a lot of fun aspects about it that I enjoy. I have a soft spot just for the Wolfman's design and everything, because for me, whenever I see that face, I think of the Wolfman, and that just kind of takes me back thinking about the old monster movies, just discovering them. So there is a lot of bias with this rating there. I think Aaron's points are super valid and everything else like that. That being said, it is a bit lower than what I would rate it, because it's not as good as Frankenstein. I could say that clear and definitively. Frankenstein is like a near 10 with how perfect it is, minus that god-awful ending, which I will say I do like the ending of this film a bit better than the ending after the windmill. Let me just clarify, folks. Yeah. After the windmill, like, it should have ended right then and there.
Right.
But they continued because god dang executives. Anyways, that being said, I still probably would rate this a modest 8. Like, I realize I am pushing it there, because rated Dracula a 7, which I found good, but for me, there was a lot more sleeper moments in Dracula than there was for this one at the very least. But at the same point, I realize that it's not like, don't listen to Aaron, listen to me. I edit it. I will edit his words to be like, I like the Wolfman.
I give it 10 out of 10.
Whoa, Aaron, easy there. Doing that. Yeah, so I'm definitely, this is probably one of the biggest gaps. It's about as big of a gap as Scream was, I think, because I gave it a 9 and you gave it a 4, I think. So it's like a Scream gap overall there. I think it's definitely fun, especially for wanting to watch, monster movies and everything. Granted, I can't say definitively that this is the true Wolfman film you should watch, or werewolf film. I haven't seen as many of them. But at the same point, that's kind of how I was with American Werewolf in London, because I think I rated also that an 8, I want to say, and then you rated it a 3.
Maybe I just hate werewolves.
I think you hate werewolves. I just hate werewolves. I guess so.
I also think with stuff like Scream and American Werewolf in London, is I probably didn't appreciate it as much as I do. Like, thinking back, maybe not Werewolf in London, but Scream I probably rated too low, because I do still think about scenes from that movie and stuff, and I'm like, all right, like, they captured something that was effective that I didn't give it enough props for on the night of rating. But this movie might be the same, but just where I'm sitting here right now, I was like, that was a 3 out of 10 movie I just watched. I was kind of waiting for it to be over most of the time.
Not gonna lie, I like this movie, but I don't think your rating's gonna change. Okay. So very divisive rating, which it's perfectly a-okay there. We'll see. We'll see if this is a Krampus review or not. I know Krampus, man. You were just spitting fire. I think, didn't you rate that a 2? I think.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
It was a 2 or a 3, I remember, and I rated it higher. Yeah, so let's find out what kind of review we're going to have here in spoiler section. So now's your time to leave in case you want to watch or avoid the film at all cost. I don't know, but Aaron, please take us away with your first review that I'm sure you got stewing in your spinach pot.
The spoilers? Man, I don't know. I guess we just start from the beginning. Well, here's the first good spoiler, I guess. Yeah, people are just cool with cheating in these days, I guess. Father's like, well, he's a nice young man. It's all good. You're gonna come over. And he's like, yes, I'm the one that was taking your daughter in the woods mysteriously when that other woman died. Yes, of course. Come in, sir. Well, I have a lot of money, you see, so it doesn't matter that she's engaged to somebody that's employed by me.
Yeah,
perhaps she'd like to be with me instead. I just thought it was funny that like there's like no like I didn't care about the guy at all as a protagonist because like he's like trying to woo this woman in like the creepiest way possible. He starts with like, I've been watching you in your room at night. Well, at first he's like, she's like, I'm a psychic. I know everything about you. And she's like, really? How'd you know about the earrings? And he's like, well, I saw them on your dresser when I was watching you through your window. And she's just like, oh, well, I'm a little put off by that initially, but I think I'll come around.
I think you just need to come up with your own 5-minute version of film and dub over because those lines are perfect.
That's just how they were like. Some Hollywood executive, after doing a line of coke, was writing the script and was just like, yes, this is how we pick up women. I know this.
Don't let her speak too much, though. We don't want her to have an opinion.
Right, lest he smack you with this silver cane that he just bought on a whim. Well, there's also like she works at a jewelry shop, and he's like, some earrings. She's like, none of those will work. You have to wear the moon ones or whatever. And he's like, oh, never mind. I'll buy a cane. And she's like, how about this one? It's got a dog on it. He's like, no. How about this one? It's got a giant pimp fucking wolf on it. It's made of pure silver. Just doesn't go with anything else I have, but for some reason I'm going to buy it. And also a pentagram, which is something that I gravitate towards for some reason in this very religious era. We live next to a giant cathedral. Anyways, I'll buy this, and it'll come in handy later when I have to beat a wolf to death.
We're going to have a good review here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have a great review.
Which I liked that the werewolf guy that was the fortune teller. First off, the rules of werewolves are so weird to me in this universe. Maybe you can explain it because I missed something. Initially, they're talking about wolfsbane. It's like anybody that sees the wolfsbane could turn into a werewolf that if it blooms or whatever. And so the lady takes the wolfsbane to the fucking fortune teller and sets it down, and he's like, he like pushes off or whatever, and he's like, you should go, after he sees the pentagram in her face, or on her hand rather, and he's like in the palm of her hand, and he knows he's going to kill her because he's going to turn into a wolf and kill her. And so he turns into a literal wolf and literally kills her. And Larry hears the scream, runs over, beats the wolf to death with his cane. Turns out it was the werewolf. Okay, I liked that, but then why does he turn into a wolf man? And also, what triggers his wolf manery? Because it's not the wolfsbane like it was that guy. And it doesn't seem to be the wolf's full moon because he's out every fucking night. So, like, he's just a wolf guy now every night? It's gotta be stressful. What are the rules to the lycanthropy in this universe? I don't know. I really don't.
Okay, I can answer half of that.
Okay, good.
As for his frequency of turning into a wolf, I don't know, man. Maybe there's just a full moon every night. Like, because they just mentioned, like, when the moon is full and bright. That's it with that. So, I don't know, because, like, it clearly has to be, like, within a couple of days that this is going on, where he's turning into a wolf on a daily basis. Pretty much, I know that Larry Talbot got bit whenever Bela as the werewolf bit him on the chest because you couldn't tell because God forbid you show blood in a movie in this era, but he got bit because he woke up the next day and he's like, I got bit right here. I don't understand. I just healed back automatically. So he's got that. The wolfsbane, I'm sure it's similar to like Dracula in a sense that's supposed to like ward off werewolves there, but the problem is like that's not even like my main issue, the wolfsbane or anything like that. One of my main issues I have is like they do mention like this will protect you from the werewolf, you know.
Yeah, they give him the necklace to protect him from the werewolf, which he promptly then gives to somebody else. Like, you think if it would keep you from turning into a werewolf, you just keep that around your neck. But
yeah, it's very confusing because it does bring up the thing. Was this off Bela's dead body? Did he have it? Does it try to suppress it?
Oh, yeah.
Or does it do anything? Because if not, you're just... I did not want to give it to Bela because he was a failure of a son.
Yeah.
I told him to go to law school, and yet he became fortune teller. I realize the same line of work and everything, but I'm not giving him this. He needs to die. I don't know. Anyways, so like having that going on, and then whenever Gwen says like, oh, what's that around your neck? She's like, it's a charm the fortune lady gave me. Says it protected me from being a werewolf, because I am a werewolf. She's like, yeah, you don't surely mean that, do you? He's like, No, of course not. Here, in fact, you should take it, because I want to make sure you're protected. And as we see at the later end of the film, it doesn't really protect her that we see clearly, because he was basically doing a Homer Simpson choke on her neck there.
Right,
And
yeah.
then he turns whenever his dad approaches. So it's like, did it actually protect, or was the gypsy lady just screwing with him?
Right, seems like it did nothing. Which does lead credence to the, did he make it all up theory? But then again, the film answers that by no, you see him as a werewolf over and over. So,
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just gotten an update that Coale has dropped his score by 0.5 at a raw 7.5.
I'm not
That is
trying
all.
to- I'm
No,
not trying to
that's
defend
I
it.
told you.
but there's just so much. None of the
Inconsistencies.
the mythos that they try to set up is damaged severely by the fact that none of it makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll watch Harry Potter and be like, yes, I believe that that's a spell that happens, and of course it'll fix everything. You can shoehorn shit in, and I'll be like, sure, whatever. But yes, they prestidigitize all their shits away. Yes, thank you, J.K. Rowling. I subscribe to your Twitter, and now I know that before toilets, wizards pooped in the streets and sent it to the poop plane. That was a gap in the lore that I needed filled. Thank you. I'll accept that, but this is like, all right, well, this is just really, a lot of this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So why'd you include it in the story?
Yeah, they're not good at rules.
No, they're not. They haven't figured that out yet. They were just like, here's some rumors,
Yeah, definitely not a good example of that. Yeah, it's very inconsistent on when it is, and not to mention it is what. Now, here's the funny thing, Aaron.
Well,
Whenever you see Bella as the werewolf, he looks like a dog.
Yeah, he looks like a big old, I say big old wolf, but a big old, fucking husky or something.
Yeah, but whenever Lon Chaney becomes a werewolf,
Yeah.
I don't know what voice I'm doing, by the way. he's like a humanoid wolf.
He's a wolf man, which is weird because they call them both werewolves, even the mystic people, and they're like, yes, whoever becomes bitten by a werewolf and survives becomes a werewolf. But yet, yes, he's the wolf man. I don't understand. And if he was wearing the charm, and that's what the charm did to him, is he was like, whoa, he's like almost conscious, but not quite. It keeps him from being a full wolf. Yeah. Then I would believe that, but he gives the charm immediately to someone else. There's nothing that explains why he's a wolf man.
Yeah, he's built different.
He's just built different.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Just, I think the rules might be the biggest downside to it, and the fact that they didn't set down rules, because there's even moments whenever the gypsy woman, she starts reciting like these verses, which I guess helps him get out of his werewolf form.
Yeah.
Which begs the question: can she only do it whenever they're unconscious or something, or dead, or?
Beats me. Yeah, those are the only times she does it. Yeah. She does it 3 times specifically.
Yeah, she did say it to Bela, who died and everything, whenever they were at the church, which I do love, even though it's a small tangent, the banter between her and the priest that says, like, we can't bury a body without praying to it. It's like, you have your customs, I have mine. Mm-hmm. We will celebrate his death through dancing and everything. And he's like, okay, fine, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
Moving on. But she recites it to Bela in the coffin and everything. But then she mentions it like 2 more times to Lon Chaney. Once whenever he has his foot stuck in a trap, and then once where at the end, again, mind you, we are in spoiler territory, he's dead.
Yeah.
And everything. So that definitely, I could see how that would like be a little bit bothersome, because for me, I just tried to turn my brain off. I'm like, he's Wolfman, I don't know.
He's Wolfman now. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
But
that's not something that like broke the film for
no.
me, but it's just like, all the cool things about these universes is often that, like, yes, so the lore. We figure out about vampires because, it's Count Orlok or it's Dracula or whatever. And we figure out, okay, so he can't travel without his own soil or whatever, so he travels in coffins full of soil. It's cool. So they're showing the rules, and then they're abiding by the rules, and the plot is shaped by that. But this one is just like, there are rules, but we don't fucking know what they are. He's a wolf guy. Yeah. Nobody fucking knows this shit.
There's rules, but we don't abide by them. Yeah.
He's just a wolf guy, and we're gonna call him a werewolf. And also, this guy that turns into a wolf is a werewolf, and also,
Yeah, doing that. It is interesting seeing mythos broken down, especially the integration of the pentagram and stuff, because usually I find that to be more satanic whenever they mention pentagram there.
Right.
So it's kind of more rare to see like werewolves having pentagram shapes, because I think they might have had, what was it? They had a pentagram shape in American Werewolf in London, I want to say, at the beginning, and they're like, hey, what's that? And it's just like, yeah, it's to protect us.
right.
And everything. So it's like very interesting to see how it's broken down. But yeah, it is funny just how like specific the cane was. Like, hey, what did you know? A wolf's head with a pentagram. Yes, and it's made out of silver.
Yeah.
You know,
Neat.
whenever you heard it was made out of silver, were you like, yeah, that's going to kill some werewolves?
Yeah, I was like, okay, this seems like a werewolf weapon or something. Like, yeah, because that's... And then when the gypsy... And I just didn't know if that was not common, like, understood at the time, if people didn't talk about werewolves in the 40s or whatever, but yeah, like...
I'm guessing not, especially since literally one of the other opening things is opening a page that talks specifically about what a werewolf is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that just might be movie flavor, too, but yeah, it's not until, like, halfway through the movie that the gypsy explains, you know... Oh, well, you need a bullet made of silver, or a knife, or a club made of silver, or whatever. Something silver to kill a werewolf. And it's like, you know, was that supposed to be a big reveal that just fell flat to a modern audience? Or is that, you know, just also bad writing? But...
Yeah, just kind of curious about how commonplace it is. Because they sprinkle in about, like, what a werewolf is. Because Gwen mentions it at the shop there. And then
and she seems
Larry's...
to be like, everybody knows about werewolves. And everybody seems to know something about werewolves. Yeah.
The village is like, we know about werewolves is. Therefore, the audience will know.
Right.
By the way, I do have to mention this because you mentioned this during your amazing opening spoiler there, talking about stuff. I do love how Larry and Gwen find each other out, aka his dad's like, oh, that's a new telescope piece. Would you help me install it? Yeah, sure, I'll help you install it. And then he's looking through, and it's like the perfect telescope. It's perfect. It goes street level. It can zoom in and hands. And like, I do love his reaction of just seeing what he doesn't even know her, but just a pretty woman. He's like, ooh. Whoa, putting on earrings.
And it's so funny because he like goes around the telescope and starts like almost approaching that way as if to like call out to her, and he's like, oh yes, I was looking at something far away, and she doesn't realize I'm here. And then ducks back behind the telescope.
Yeah, that's like cheese for me that I'm like, that's some good brie right there. But even whenever he does say like, you know, yeah, I knew you had it because you're psychic, you know, and talking about it like,
I know everything. I know everything whenever I see a pretty woman.
Yes, that's exactly it, but only pretty women. But I do like the I think it's very funny how quick the turnaround is from her being like, well, I'm currently engaged, I don't think I can, and then she's immediately swooned by him.
And she's
like after
let
that,
me run away with you.
After that one quarrel they had at the gypsy festival there,
which is just and it's wild because this guy comes over, he's like, makes it evident that he's stalking her. She has no idea who he is, and he asks her to like, it's 8 p.m. We'll go for a walk. Let's do the like 4 times, and she goes no. And then of course 8 p.m. she's like, where is he? I'm wearing his favorite earrings.
Oh my god, yeah. And then immediately
it's just, so sexist. It's like, yes, of course a woman will do anything a man says, but you just have to pursue her.
It's the Sean Connery way.
Yes.
Yeah, there is that. And then by the time whenever he's clearly freaking out because he realizes, oh my god, I'm killing people, I need to get out of here. She's like, no, you can't leave. I can fix you.
Right.
You know, doing that.
Werewolf BF.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's funny seeing the smaller stuff like that. I even like the one scene whenever he's like telling his dad, he's like, I gotta get out of here. And whenever he does show the scar where he was bit,
That's like an obvious
it's
pentagram.
a perfect pentagram, like just perfect. He's like, well, any scar can make that design. And it's
He goes,
like,
any wild animal could have made that scar.
I did not realize Mr. Talbot was Egyptian because he's deep in denial.
True. Deep in denial.
He just, even whenever it comes to him, his methodology of like, I'm going to help my son by strapping him to a chair and showing him at the window the hunt.
Yeah.
That'll snap him out of it. But
And
then
they're pretty
again,
weak straps too. For like, if he were to shift into a werewolf, I'm sure he would just break out of it.
yeah, for sure. Pretty dadgum strong. That was the other thing I will say. Like, whenever it came to like seeing the wolf kills and everything, it was kind of funny because there was times where, like, again, I think they're trying to imply he's biting their throat because that's how the main girl Jenny is killed by Bela as the werewolf. Whenever he's in dog form, he's like, oh my goodness, they ripped her throat out. Is whenever they do that, but it's mostly just a lot of strangling.
He just runs up to women and
It's
starts
like the
strangling
Frankenstein monster approach.
them. Yeah. Which doesn't lead me to believe, maybe it is all in his head. And he's just running around strangling women. He's like, I'm the wolf man. And they're like, Jesus, you need to shave and also quit strangling me.
You need to shave and quit strangling me. Two things women want. Jesus.
The two things I would like right now, not in the right order, but please shave and stop strangling me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so it's pretty goofy. It's pretty goofy. I feel like the bad thing is now, because I do have positive things to say in spoiler section. I know the rest has been like, yeah, isn't that silly? Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I do like, the entire time as they're trying to figure out what to do about the situation there, because they're like, does he need to go to a hospital? Does he just need to leave? Like, or will he get over this and all this stuff? I do like narrative-wise how the story wraps up, because it pretty much has him as the wolf man one last time roaming about, and he's trying to attack Gwen, which finally snaps her out of her whimsy of him, because as soon as Mr. Talbot comes in and beats him down with a cane and everything, like, her fiance comes back and she's like, oh, Frank, does that. But I do like whenever it comes to the story that it's like, oh my God, what happened to your son? It's like, that monster must have killed him and ran off. And oh wait, no, he was attacking Gwen, and then Larry Talbot came in to save her.
Right.
And everything.
And then nobody just disputes that. The father that just beat his son to death, the girl that was just attacked by the werewolf, the gypsy that saw all this, that just like, that must be what happened. And then the credits roll, like, of course that's what happened.
Yeah, well, it was before everybody showed up at the very least, but yeah, I'm guessing it's because, like, Gwen's, like, traumatized, it seemed like women in the early 1900s in films fainted a lot, because that was that was a feat that they could pull off.
Because they were just feeble, little, brittle things. Couldn't handle the stress of this situation.
Yeah, and then it's like, after he's beaten down, because obviously the gypsy woman knows what's up, and she's just like, no one's going to believe me anyway, so I'll just keep quiet.
Yeah.
I'll do my thing and slink out.
Right, and just wheel on out of here until
doing
somebody
that
needs a fortune. Yeah.
But it at least rounds it off, because there's a lot of suspicion on Larry Talbot being the monster.
Yeah.
So it is kind of funny just seeing him, like, be viewed as the hero at the end.
Which is wild to me, because it's like they were trying to build that tension, but then, like, it's almost like nobody believed him. It's almost like he was desperate to tell people, like, I am a werewolf, help me, but, like, he just couldn't bring himself to do it. Or, like, his father would stop him before he admitted it to the doctor or whatever. But then everyone in town is like, no, you couldn't be a werewolf.
No,
anyway, so why are these wild wolves killing people and leaving tracks right to Larry Talbot's window?
What's the deal with these wolves?
What's the deal with American werewolves in London?
Oh my gosh. That's the one thing I did like about it anyways, but it is goofy still as well. Trying to think about anything else to say. I feel like we've mentioned a lot of the points there. I don't know. What do you think, man?
That's
that was it.
that was it for me, honestly.
Well,
they do. There's one little more rules thing that I feel like they tried to slip in, and it just doesn't matter. Or maybe this was a dramatic moment that went over my head. But whenever Larry goes to the funeral of the gravekeeper he killed, which is like his first victim as a werewolf, and then he like can't bring himself to actually go inside the church. Is that like a thing? Like werewolves can't be in churches or something, or is that like?
I think that was just more because like I was curious about that as well because I think this just ties into the town's very gossipy, and whenever Jenny's mom is like getting up and Gwen's case being like, well, she was there that night and she didn't help at all. I think she's a pure monster, especially messing with that Larry Talbot. Doing that. And so I'm thinking, because they made her build up as if she was going to be a big antagonist, but you only see her twice complaining. But I'm guessing that scene of the church was just meant to kind of show that everybody views him terribly because he's kind of mixed in. It's like, well, you were out there.
Right.
And you had your cane there beating up Bella and the throat's torn out there.
Right.
I think it was just more to raise suspicion and that he couldn't take the pressure of being seen
and just sort of highlights the suspense.
Yes, I think that was more so it, because you do see him go into like the church graveyard and the church. I feel is that I only say that because they had the longest panning shot of going down the pews and everybody turns to look at him, so it's everybody staring at him and he's like, nope.
Yeah.
Just like just walks out. That's my view anyways, but you're right, it was definitely like, as much as I love seeing old Gothic churches and everything else, it was definitely like, I thought that was going to lead up to more, but I guess that's just to show that basically the whole town's is sussing him. Right,
which I do feel like the film tries to portray concretely in those periods, but I just didn't feel it, because, like, yeah, everybody's so ready to acquit him, and he's so ready to be like, I'm guilty, and everybody's like, no, it's fine.
No,
like, where's the angry mob? Where's the, like, well, where's the people with pitchforks at the bottom of his astronomy estate? Like, yeah, we know you're the werewolf, come out, or whatever,
Yeah, I think that's just the Frankenstein motif.
Yeah,
true, but
like,
you're right.
I was just hoping for more of a conflict, since the guy is the protagonist and the villain. He's the werewolf and he's the guy that's trying not to be the werewolf. I just didn't really feel the big conflict on either side. But.
Okay, yeah, well. That's totally understandable there. Aside from that, I don't think there's anything I could talk about on my end. I'm genuinely spinning there. So I feel like, this one...
it's a wrap for me.
Yeah, this one went out with a bang for me. This one went out with a whimper for you. But it was no Krampus review where literally there's a lot of triggering stuff.
No, I wasn't like... Yeah. Upset by the terrible quality of this film. It was just like there was nothing there.
It was a bit of a snoozer. Which is perfectly fine. All right. I guess we'll jump into our next teaser for our next episode of the movie we're going to be reviewing.
Yes.
It's going to be another member of the Universal Monster family.
Monsters.
But just like John Cena, he might be hard to see.
Oh, is this the Invisible Man?
It is the Invisible Man, baby.
I'm excited for the Invisible Man.
All right, terrific. So you'll have that to maybe look forward to. We'll find out whenever we watch the movie. But thank you all so much for listening to this episode, and we'll see y'all again next time when we're Poppin the Scary with the Invisible Man.
Hey.
Man, you can't see me, bro. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @ColeKirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're Poppin the Scary.